The Sun Devils have 8 home games in 2023, and we're going to look over the uniform combinations for the team this year, which games are going to have the blackout games, and more on this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast.
Are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw. I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out to the everydayers who are here every day. Wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like and subscribe and turn on those notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Stay in touch with that content by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast as well at LO_Sun Devils. Let's go ahead and jump into today's conversation. I've been meaning to talk about this for a minute. I've been teasing it a little bit, and we've just had tons of content to go over in the meantime. We're finally getting around to it, and it's looking at the home games for the Sun Devils in 2023. They have 8, count it, 8 home games in 2023. It's absolutely remarkable, and a big reason for that is their 3 the home and home series games that they have to start the year will be at home for them. And with that in mind, that's obviously a lot of opportunity for the Sun Devils to shine and start out the 2023 campaign on a hot note. And that's where I want to start, is the opening 3 games before we hop into conference play. So week 1 will be the faculty, staff, and appreciation game. There's not necessarily a jersey combination that they'll be coming out with, at least not as of yet. I would anticipate this to just be a pretty standard uniform set for the team with the maroon tops, maroon bottoms, whatever helmet they decide to choose, because they got 1.5 million of them, as you can see behind me on YouTube. If you can't see behind me, you should check out the YouTube channel. But anyways, the week 1 game will be against Southern Utah. This is obviously the cupcake game for the team. This is the game that we anticipate Arizona State to come out and just absolutely knock some teeth around. And we should anticipate that, because last year, for a 3-win Sun Devils team, they still came out in week 1 and took apart NAU to the tune of a 40-3 outcome. Like, we can expect, even with a new coaching staff, even with a roster overhaul, that Arizona State can take care of business against a team like Southern Utah. Now, obviously, they did not take care of business against an Eastern Michigan team, but for what it's worth, they ended up being a quality team. I believe they were bowl eligible, but do not quote me on that. But regardless, I would expect that this team is able to come out in week 1 and flash all sorts of talent. I would hope that whoever the week 1 starting quarterback is maybe goes to the bench at some point in time, because they aren't playing bad, but because we get up so much and we're like, oh, let's see what we got in the other guys. Like, I want that kind of situation for the team. But week 1, faculty and staff appreciation. Show up to the game to support the team, and also realize how important it is that the staff and faculty crew that is at Arizona State University to put together great facilities for the team and keep up track on everything else, all the promotions, all the media access and availability. Everything that they do needs better appreciation, and this is a great way to start it off. Now for week 2, we are already getting into the blackout game. And this is an important game for the team. They're playing Oklahoma State in week 2. Keep in mind, this is an Oklahoma State team that's going to be doing a little bit of reloading. They're losing some guys on defense. They're losing a lot on offense, including quarterback Spencer Sanders, who had been their starting quarterback the last handful of years and had been there 4 years. Like, this is a reloading Oklahoma State team, and this means that Arizona State will hopefully be able to kick them while they're down and capitalize on a down team and start off the year 2-0. This is a great opportunity for them to do that. Now, is it a statement win? Sort of, kind of. Like, it really just depends what Oklahoma State is able to do. I haven't done a ton of research into their team. I won't be doing a ton of research until, it's week 2 of the season and I need to see what's on their team, who's doing what after week 1, stuff like that. But what I do know is that Oklahoma State is trying to rebuild their team, rebuild their image. Now, of course, Mike Gundy is still there, and he's going to put together a competitive football team no matter who's on the field for him, because he's one of the longest tenured coaches in college football. And he's, love him or hate him, because I know he's very polarizing, he knows how to coach. They'll find a way to be competitive. Hopefully Arizona State can return the favor for what happened last year. Not so much in a beatdown like what ASU had, but more or less just being able to get that win, even out the home and home series. Week 3 is your City of Tempe night / green game for Arizona State. No, this does not mean they're rocking green unis. I would vomit if they did. They're going to be doing this against Fresno State. This is the final, the final out of conference game for the team. And Fresno State has very, very quietly put together a very good program. This was even after Kalen DeBoer, their former head coach, had left last year to go on to be Washington's head coach. They were able to reload. They ended the season ranked. They were able to play good football with or without Jake Haener was their quarterback. I believe he was injured last year, and they were able to still be a very competitive football team. They've got some good players up in Fresno, and they're going to be coming down to Arizona State, and Arizona State is looking like they're going to be outmatched right now. It's not that I don't believe the team can't take them out or anything like that, but of the 3 home games this year that are out of conference, I think that Fresno State's going to be the most difficult. It definitely increases in difficulty week after week after week, starting with your cupcake game, then going to a rebuilding Oklahoma State, or reloading, I should say, and then week 3 against a very potent Fresno State team. It's going to be a strong test of abilities for Kenny Dillingham, the coaching staff he's put together, the players that he's brought to the program, and they're going to have the opportunity to show off that they belonged on the same field as a Fresno State. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I love using FanDuel. There's great promotions every day. It's a safe and secure app, and the best part is you get paid instantly for your winnings. There's no better place to bet on all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. To my everydayers, tomorrow's episode is going to be taking a look at that aforementioned assistant coaching staff for the team. They've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and I can't wait to talk about these guys in detail for what they've been doing for the program in such a short amount of time. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for a breakdown of the, what do they call them, assistant coaching staff. Back into our conversation, looking at the home games for Arizona State. We open up Pac-12 play in about the most difficult way possible, with the USC Trojans coming to town for one more time against Arizona State. Look, USC was very close to a Pac-12 title championship in year 1 of Lincoln Riley. They had the Heisman Trophy winner and the best player in college football, Caleb Williams, absolutely dominate for the 14 games that he played. There's no reason to believe he's not going to do the same. He's the early projected favorite for the #1 overall draft pick. And man, he is so good at football. And I would anticipate that he's going to be able to do something similar against Arizona State. But this is good news for Arizona State, that they're opening conference play at home, and they're opening against a very good USC team. Now, let's say in like this absolutely insane scenario that I don't believe, I'll put it out there right now, I don't believe this is going to happen, but Let's say Arizona State somehow starts the year 3-0 against their out-of-conference competition and walks into USC with a 3-0 record, their fourth straight home game to start the year. And if they won 3 straight games, I mean, this is obviously a team that is using its talent to the best of its ability. Brian Ward should be able to have that defense on par with all the reinforcements that have been brought in. I know it's almost a completely new defense, but he's made some very good additions, and there's been some really good standouts in practice. They could be able to at least slow down USC enough to keep up with them. Meanwhile, offensively, no matter who's the quarterback, if they are winning against Fresno State and Oklahoma State, they're going to be showing off that they have they can't talk. They have the potency to be able to put up points when it matters. They can average whatever they need to do to be able to outscore teams, and especially if the defense is able to do its half of the bargain. So looking at this game against USC, it's not going to be easy. It's definitely probably the one game that I would project them to absolutely lose this year. But then for what it's worth, like maybe you're feeling good about yourself. Again, in this situation where you started off the year 3-0, and obviously at this point in time, the Valley is activated. Everyone wants to come out to games because they're like, oh crap, the Sun Devils are 3-0. And they're really good. And Kenny Dillingham and this, that, and the other. And then what better way to kick off the Pac-12 games, and this is where I'm leading it into, than with the Maroon Monsoon. Personally, Maroon Monsoon is my favorite of the alternate uniforms that the Sun Devils will rock. It is chef's kiss. I love the Maroon Monsoon. I love that every once in a while they switch it up, but I do really like those maroon uniforms, tops and bottoms, and helmets, and then mix it with the yellow lettering and the yellow outlines and everything, or gold, excuse me, not yellow, with the gold outlines. Shame on me. What kind of Sun Devil fan am I? Anyways, please forgive me for that. With the gold lettering, the gold outlines, all that good stuff. You look good, you feel good, you feel good, you play good, they pay good. That's the way that Deion Sanders once said it, which leads me to our next home game. After 4 straight home games to start the year, they will go on 1 road game in week 5 and then return home in week 6 to take on the Deion Sanders Colorado Buffs. And this will be a really interesting game. Colorado is receiving a ton of hype right now. And what's so interesting is they've had 1.5 million players enter the transfer portal, but they brought in some really intriguing talent. They have the former number 1 overall prospect. I always forget his name. It's his first name's either Hunter or his last name is Hunter. For some reason, I'm thinking it's Travis Hunter, and I just don't trust myself. I can't remember it. But they brought him in, former number 1 prospect, defensive back, looked really good at Jackson State under Deion. They brought in the number 1 defensive back prospect from this year, who I also don't know his name. I've been more focused on our guys. But again, like when the time rolls around, I'll know what I'm talking about. This is a very early look at games that aren't going to happen until October. So I'll ask for a little bit of grace there. It's nothing to do with not doing my research. It's everything to do with I'm focused on the Sun Devils and not focused on any other team. Regardless, Colorado receiving a ton of hype. They've got those defensive backs. They got Shedeur Sanders, who's Deion's nephew, who's generating some potential first-round hype for next year. They've got interesting weapons, and there could be a scenario where Colorado could be a team hovering around 500 at this point in time. Deion has showed that he knows how to coach those guys at the FCS level. Maybe he's able to coach them at the FBS level for Colorado. Get the most out of those guys. We'll see. But this is still nonetheless a very interesting game for the Sun Devils. It will be, leading back into the uniforms, their Hall of Fame induction. I feel like this is probably the game where you either have your classic uniforms or you just roll with kind of what you had in week 1. Because if they're not rolling with the throwback uniforms in this game, then I imagine they're probably doing it in the next game. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils. Everydayers, make sure you tune in tomorrow as I break down the assistant coaching staff, from Vince Amy on defense to Rashad Samples on offense and more. We're going to talk about them in detail and how they're making such a big impact for Arizona State Sun Devil sports right now. 3 more home games remain. I had kind of left off with the Hall of Fame induction could be the throwback uniforms. If it's not, then this game is the throwback uniforms. It's the homecoming game for Arizona State. This is an opportunity to really show your stuff off for the returning alumni, for the returning football players, all that good stuff. Like, this is the game that brings everybody out, right? And in like this perfect scenario where Arizona State is 4-1 in their home games, with that lone loss being the USC. Like, in a crazy scenario, I think best case is probably 3-2. Either way, you were able to put together a string of good games this year and really show off that you're a reloaded team. You're a team that's better than it once was. Like, I am very interested in this game because the last few homecoming games that Arizona State has had have not panned out the way that they wanted them to. This is actually a rematch of the homecoming game that they had back in the 2021 season. Wazoo, Washington State will be coming to town. They will have Cam Ward at quarterback. He's a really interesting prospect. He has so much potential talent as a quarterback for the team. Will he be able to put it together in his final year of eligibility to right now he's an NFL player for sure, but there's first round conversation around him. So we'll see what he can do. But the bottom line here is Washington State is coming back. If there's one thing that should generate you to play your best homecoming game it's years, it's to take down the team that embarrassed you during the 2021 season. And at this point in the year, we're in week 8. We're definitely going to have a clear understanding of who this football team is. If they're a middling team, if they're a good team, if they're a terrible team, we're going to know what's up by then. And that's obviously going to highly affect who shows out to this game. But again, I've been rolling with best case scenario. If you beat Colorado, I will say that I'm still saying your best case scenario is a loss to Fresno State, a loss to USC. You would be, in this case, 3-2 at home. That's still generating enough of a fan influence to come to this game. I don't know what to do with Wazoo right now. I think they're a really good team, but I also think that they could be a beatable team. Once again, I can't stop saying this because I know people are gonna yell at me. I'm not doing my research on these teams until we get closer. We will find out when we get there, especially talking about a week 8 game. So this will be really interesting, but regardless, the homecoming game or the previous week 6 home game for the Hall of Fame induction will absolutely be one of the uniforms with the classic Sparky helmet, maybe some even classic uniforms. I know that they flirted with those. I'll be interested in that. Week 11, there's a bye week in between this game, and there's also going to be another game. I don't have the schedule right in front of me. Again, I only am looking at the home games right now. They will be at home week 11 against Oregon. Oregon's going to be one of the best teams in the Pac-12. Dan Lanning as their head coach. Bo Nix, who was a Heisman candidate last year. They brought in some really interesting talent offensively and defensively. I have no doubt that they're going to be a team that's going to give Arizona State a really difficult time, as difficult a time as anybody else on this roster. It's the second to last home game, the salute to service game. Arizona State has had some really, really cool uniforms during their salute to service games, and I really hope that that's going to be the case again this year. I feel like this is either just a normal home uniform. This could be an alternate home uniform, but I'm hoping that they bring back those camo uniforms. I would love nothing more than for them to find a way to incorporate 42 on those uniforms in honor of Pat Tillman, whether it's some kind of like a captain's pin, not pin. I can't think of what they're called, but like something he would sew onto the jersey for the captain spot. I would love a 42 there. I'd love a 42 on the helmets. Like, I would just really love to see them incorporate Pat Tillman here. I know that they more than likely will. This is Arizona State we're talking about. So those will be really cool uniforms. I think those will be one of the most exciting uniforms of the 8-game home stretch for Arizona State finally, the last home game of the year will be Senior Day against the team down south. Really, really interested for that game. It'll be a rematch. Arizona State had won 5 previous. They've really dominated this rivalry since the start of the 2000s, and Arizona State is going to be very pissed off with U of A coming back into their territory. They're going to want the cup back. They're going to want to prove that they were on the ropes in the game down in Tucson, and if they had a couple plays go their way, then that was a very different outcome for the team. This is a team that is going through some transition as well. What they got, I can't think of his name either. Jed something. I want to say Jed Fisher. I don't think that's right. As U of A's head coach, Jaden DeLora looked really good, but my goodness, is he getting bad headlines right now? I'm not getting into it. If you're interested with what's going on with Jaden DeLora, you can look it up on your own time. But there's a chance he's not even the starting quarterback in week 12 for the team. So who knows what we're going to get out of that. But bottom line here, this is the final game of the year, as it always is. This is against your absolute hated rival. I think for Senior Day, you would probably just rock some normal uniforms, kind of like what we would see in week 1 or potentially somewhere throughout the season. I don't know if I see anything crazy from the team in terms of like new uniform designs. They definitely could, but I feel like this has to be I feel like there has to be 3 games this year of having those home uniforms, especially when you've got 8 total. You got plenty of opportunity here to strut off some alternate uniforms. They've already got 2 confirmed with the Blackout game and the Maroon Monsoon. I anticipate that they're definitely going to be getting out some other uniforms as well to generate some excitement, generate some opportunity for them to make a quick buck off of those new jerseys. Bottom line, there's a lot of really exciting uniform combinations we're going to see this year. I'm looking forward to it. I want to know what you guys personally think of these uniforms. If you had to rank them, what would you do? I know at the top of my list would be the Maroon Monsoon, but we'll see what the rest of these uniforms look like. What's your game that you're looking most forward to this year for the home game? Which game are you making it out to? And one more thing before I go. I had the University of Arizona reach out to me on LinkedIn and want me to continue my college career with them. I put on social media, and I'm going to say it here too. I'd rather be dead than red. And I know that that was very common talking about communism way back when. This is how I feel about Arizona. I do not like that school at all. I will never continue my education at the University of Arizona. There's nothing enticing about it. I'm too deep in the history of the rivalry. I know too much. I do not want to continue my education down there. So please, kindly and politely, get out of my DMs. Don't message me. I'm not going anywhere else besides the Arizona State University. That being said, thank you guys as always for tuning in. Remember, wherever you're getting your podcast, to hit like and subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast. Also, follow me on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Tune in tomorrow. Until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.